There's a certain condition where surviving starts to feel like the worst option. Not because someone is seeking their demise, but because existing without contributing feels worse than not existing at all. For Megumi Fushiguro from Jujutsu Kaisen, that condition isn't hypothetical, it's just how he's wired. And what happens in the Shibuya arc only makes sense once you understand what's fueling his choices. It's not a battle strategy, it's not even bravery, it's something a person learns. But where does that come from? Because it didn't start in Shibuya. It started with the price tag. Quick rundown, beginning with Toji, born in the Zenin clan with zero curse energy, aka negative emotions used as a weapon, which in that family means you're worthless before you've done anything. But he eventually left, found someone, and built something close to a life. Then his wife died, and he channeled the essence of his clan. How? By attempting to sell his son as part of a parlay. 10 million yen based on whether Megumi inherited a cursed technique. And Megumi did. The 10 Shadows technique, one of the rarest abilities in the Jujutsu world. It lets the user summon and command powerful cursed spirits bound to the technique. The crown jewel of those techniques is Makara, the divine general who's never been tamed in the entire history of the technique. Summoning it is essentially signing your own death warrant since it attacks everything in range, including the person who called it. Now Gojo stepped in before the deal closed, so technically it was never completed. But that's the thing about terms that get set early. They don't need to be completed to do their damage. They just need to be real long enough for the person growing up inside of them. Megumi never knew there was a deal on the table. He didn't grow up inside the clan's walls or their logic. But the idea that his value was conditional still got through. No parents, a comatose sister, and a quiet, pervasive logic that the only way to preserve your place is to keep earning it. And what that combination makes is seen in the Goodwill event. Megumi's on the rooftop with Inumaki and Kamo fighting against Hanami. Inumaki is at his limits, and Kamo gets knocked out. And the only way out Megumi thinks of is to fix his hands for Makara, the same death sentence he's reached for once before against Sukuna. But Inumaki gets up and puts his hand on his shoulder to interrupt it. Then later in the same fight is down to just him and Maki. He's running on empty. And in that headspace, he's not thinking about how to survive. He's thinking about whether anyone dies before he does, and what that would mean about him. So he starts talking himself into pulling the Makara pin again. But before he could finish his internal monologue, Maki says it's time for them to tag out. So he stands down. He stops not because the danger passed, but because someone else can carry the weight now. The line isn't danger or exhaustion, it's contribution by any means necessary. Okay, so back to Shibuya and the choice mentioned earlier. Now that you know where the logic came from, look at what it actually does to a person. By the time Megumi gets to this alley, he's already up Shit's Creek with a ping pong paddle. He's had multiple fights, his cursed energy is running low, he's even had a run-in with someone he couldn't make sense of. All adding up to the kind of tiredness when your body makes decisions before your mind does. Then Shigemo ambushes him. This is not a fair fade, and Megumi knows it. But what's interesting is he doesn't try to run. He doesn't look for an exit. He goes straight into summoning Makara. And here's the part people miss. This isn't panic. It's not desperation either. Not in the way most people think it is. By this point, his body is running on pure instinct and his conscious mind is barely in the room. The one thing still operating is the belief that his death only counts if he takes someone with him. That's not recklessness. That's a logic system doing exactly what it was built to do. The pattern has been running all night. Every fight in Shibuya, he's been moving like someone who doesn't believe the numbers can change. Like there's no safe point to stop. So he just keeps going until he's got nothing left. Makara is the end of what that process looks like. He isn't summoning it because he thinks he could win. He calls something that has, in the entire history of the 10 Shadows technique, killed every single user. He knows this, but does it anyway. And the reason isn't courage, is that in that moment, the only outcome he could accept was one that still serves a purpose, even if the only thing left to give was his own body. Now most people hear that and say, well, that's extreme. In a high stakes life or death situation, of course the logic gets pushed that far. But the logic doesn't appear in Shibuya. Shibuya just removes everything that was keeping it in check. The teammates, the mission, the plan. Strip all of that away and what's left is the raw version of what was already running. That's what conditional worth does at full throttle. It doesn't just push you too hard. It makes the other option, existing without contributing, feel like the worst outcome. Not death, uselessness. Here's what you need to know about patterns that get put in place early. They don't need the person to keep choosing them. They don't need a reminder or a memory. They just need the terms to feel real. Earlier in Shibuya, right before Megumi chose kamikaze sorcery, Toji pulled up on him. But he wasn't himself. He was revived through a seance technique, running on only instinct and muscle memory. And since Megumi has never seen his father's face, he just sees him as another threat. They squabble for a moment, and then Toji stops. Ask him what his name is. Megumi says Fushiguro, and something shifts. Toji smiles, says, not Zenin, huh? Good for you. Then deletes himself. Not because the fight is over, because the one thing his body couldn't control was the risk of killing his own son. So he removes the risk the only way available to him. But at that moment, Megumi's existence, not his technique, not what he can contribute, not his ability to survive, was recognized by the one person whose recognition was supposed to be free from the start. Except he didn't know who he was talking to. He left that alley not knowing the debt had been paid, not knowing the source of it even had a face, not knowing it was over. But that's how it works sometimes. The people who set the terms don't get to decide when you stop paying them. Because by the time they want you to, you already own the debt yourself.